because I wasn't able to find any of the words that Canadians spell properly and Americans don't, so that I would have a good excuse to point it out. So it's good that you get it out of the way right away. So this is a 25-minute talk that I've been asked to do in 15. So in true software delivery fashion, I'm just doing all the same stuff faster. So buckle up, it might get a little bit intense. I'm not going to waste a lot of time telling you about me. If you want to know more about my experience and stuff like that, you can check out my website. There's all my work experience. For now, let's just make an agreement that I'm pretty awesome and I have tons of relevant experience, yeah? We're good on that. Excellent. So I want to talk about backlog refinement, or as some people call it, grooming. I don't know what the dominant term is around here, but I want to talk about this because I think a lot of people are suffering from a problem that is really not all that difficult to alleviate. So I figured I'd start with a user story. I want to know about how to get my requirements process up and running quickly. But that's not really a value in and of itself. Why do I want to know that? I put it in this really nice, polite statement. You don't even need to read that. I'll tell you. Who recognizes this symptom? Your sprint planning meetings are long. They take a whole day. They're hot. It smells like developer in the room. And at the end of the day, everybody agrees to the sprint to get out of the room. Who's done this? Yeah. Not exactly the attitude you want when entering a sprint. We're supposed to come out of these things and be like, yeah, we can do this. We're going to build the best software ever in these 2 weeks. This is not really what's happening for most people. And generally, I think this is not all that hard to alleviate. So I have an example of how I go about starting out with this. What I'm not trying to deliver here is a set process. So I'm actually going to visualize some steps I've used, but I'm not telling you have to do exactly this. Yeah. So first of all, look at the inflow. Most of our backlogs start, how do I get the laser thing? There we go. They start over here. This is a massive screen. I've never worked with a screen like this. They start over here. Stuff just like magically appears in the backlog, and we have no idea where it came from. I like to look at where stuff flows into my backlog from. We have different departments, customer requests, team requests. You guys probably seen these ones before, right? Marketing comes along, they have like some one-line sentence that somebody shouted out at a meeting and said, yeah, that's awesome, we're going to build that thing. Download protection, and nobody has any idea what it is. So this stuff's all really, really fuzzy at this point. But I like to visualize each of these separately, because then these various stakeholders, they can have the ability to look at their own priorities before we start talking about having common priorities. But at some point in time, we're merging all this stuff together into a common backlog. We have to balance the priorities against each other. And it helps them to see that they're not the only one with priorities. I don't know if you guys have ever encountered somebody who thinks that their thing is the most important thing all the time. No. It's rare, but I've seen it happen occasionally. This visualization helps a lot with that, so that people see that there are other people with priorities. Then we come to the actual refinement part of itself. This is a pretty simplistic version, but this is a really quick and easy way to get started. Just make a column after backlog called product owner refinement, team refinement. And we iterate back and forth between these. When the product owner's got to go out and find more information, get more on the business case, whatever it might be. Sometimes maybe the team's got to do some prototyping, they've got to investigate it, they've got to spend massive amount of time estimating the thing, obviously. I have the word estimation in my slide. Now I was terrified, but I didn't get a chance to take it out after I saw. And we sort of iterate through this back and forth, until eventually we reach the state of ready. Oh my God, this is going quickly. Till eventually we reach the state of ready. Ready is what most people picture the backlog as, something we can just pull stuff off of. It's just ready to go. Ready is, the basic state of ready is we can just pull stuff from there. It's rock and roll. So a lot of teams talk about definition of ready. I'm going to give you a quick template for definition of ready just to get you started. But if there's an even simpler way than that. Your definition of ready to start with is everybody in the team agrees that it's ready. Pretty simple to implement. So I'm going to go through this because it's really quick, and it's got the word estimation in it. But here's just a few things that you can look at as an initial definition already, just to sort of get you up and rolling. You know, what the user story, what problem are we trying to solve? I do like to have the stakeholders listed in the stories that I have, and the words invite to the review meeting in there. So that, you know, I know it's crazy to think we might want to show the stuff that we built to the people who asked for it, but it's something I like to do. Must-haves, won't-haves. Questions and answers is a little iffy. I actually prefer conversations, and I don't want huge documented backlogs. I think the end state is what matters. But, you know, sometimes you might want to follow the questions we asked and how we responded to them in this type of stuff. Actions pending is a pretty important one. We go out from backlog refinement, and we never plan what we're going to do. But we all sat there and we agreed, we need to find out more about this thing. And then we go back to whatever it was we were doing before. And then we come back 2 weeks later, we're like, oh yeah, that thing, right, we need to find out about that. And when we go back and we come back 2 weeks later, oh yeah, that thing. Actions pending. How to demo, where we are having the demo, what kind of data we are using for the demo, what we're going to show, this type of stuff. This is just a template to get you started. So we go through these iterations back and forth, team refinement, PO refinement, get over to ready. And then from ready, we just pull stuff into a sprint, or if we're working in Kanban, doesn't really matter, but it's just a matter of I want to say plocking, but that's a Swedish word, and yeah, anyway. That would have got huge laughs in Sweden, just for the record. Then we can, this is not really refinement, but I think it's very good to visualize the outflow after the sprint as well. Especially, we have this awaiting deployment one. This has been huge for me. For instance, when I worked with the state, we had lots of handover processes. We were not allowed to put stuff into production. It's really interesting to see how quickly your customer changes their mind when there's like 60 things they're dying to get sitting in this column, and the question is, why isn't this stuff live? And you say, I know it's ridiculous, should we do something about it? Very valuable. And then you put the whole thing together, and look at that. We can actually see from the moment somebody requests something to the moment it arrives at done. People can follow the progress of their stuff. Another good thing about this system, I think people have started calling it portfolio management or something. I'm not too concerned about that. It's a visualization. Another good thing is we can have some abstraction here. People often confuse visualization with transparency. If I just put all the information in the world up, people will be able to know what it means, and then they'll learn something from that. If you put every single thing that happens in your sprint on a board that's designed to work for your executives, they're not going to understand what it means. This is not going to be a useful metric for them. The same for you as or piece of data for them. Same for you as the team. I mean, if the product owner has a specific set of things that he does, you don't need to know every single individual step that he's taking. You just need to know what he's working on. He or she, is working on at any given point in time. So I wanted to give you a few actionable takeaways. How we doing over there? 5 minutes. Oh, we're great. Few actionable takeaways. Start visualizing your refinement process. Stuff does not magically appear on your backlog. It comes from somewhere. It generally goes through some sort of prioritization before it even gets there. It's requested by somebody. Somebody has talked about it prior to the moment that you see it. Start visualizing that. If you can definitely refine on demand, but if you're having trouble with this, if your sprint plannings are long and hot and smell of developer or tester or scrum master, this is probably the safest way to make that statement. If you have those meetings, put aside 2 hours every other week or whatever it is, just put aside some time and start working on this. It's not going to magically happen. I know none of us wants another meeting booked, but this pays back for itself, I promise you. When you get into your sprint planning meeting, I went from having literally 2-day sprint planning meetings when I worked with a division of the Swedish government. They were, 1.5, 2 days very often, to having sprint planning meetings that lasted 45 minutes because we took 2 hours every other week to get this done before we arrived in the room and had all these questions that nobody knew the answer to. And talk about what ready means for your team. The question of in what state is something ready to be worked on is a very important question. Oh, that was bad. That was my big reveal. But the secret, the secret sauce of backlog refinement, it's totally ruined now. The most important point here is that this is not a tool to replace conversations. This is merely a tool to facilitate the conversations. See, that would have been way more powerful if I hadn't. Merely a tool to facilitate conversations between the stakeholders, the team, the product owner, and these people. If you are using this as a method to not communicate with each other, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be building any better software. If you are using this to send comments in a Jira back and forth, tagging each other, getting more and more and more angry all the time because somebody said something sarky ages ago which got misinterpreted, and then back and forth, and all of a sudden they're sitting there for 3 months and we're pinging and people's managers are being CC'd and what have you. This is not going to work. This is just a tool to help you understand what it is you're talking about and make it more visible. So I had some acceptance criteria for my user story I started with, if people remember that. Provide a basic structure, provide some actionable takeaways. I'm going to measure this in a moment. What I wasn't going to deliver was something that would fix all your problems overnight. I think there was very little risk of that. So I have some acceptance tests I just quickly need to run. Thumbs up from anyone who got an actionable takeaway from this. Oh, we're not hitting the 50% mark, but it's okay. People tell Jeff over beer that they enjoyed the talk. 3+ is my goal. So that being said, I wrote this before we went out last night, so I don't really know how that's going to work out. And then the last one. Thank you. And then I had no natural point for my sales pitch slide. I couldn't really get it in there any other way. I just recently wrote a book. You can read about this in here. You can get it pay what you want model, so free if you want, on LeanPub. Or I have paper books. They just arrived last week. I have a few left with me. If anybody comes up and talks to me, you can get one. Thank you.